You believe your digital world is the pinnacle of human organization. But the truth is that the modern internet is nothing more than a fragile, flickering ghost compared to the indestructible clay memory of the ancient world. Long before the first silicon chip was etched, there existed a caste of men in the heart of Mesopotamia who held the keys to the universe in their calloused, clay-stained hands. These were the royal tablet keepers of Nineveh, the architects of the world's first universal library. And they did not just store information, they controlled the very fabric of reality through the medium of earth and fire. While we panic over a server crash or a corrupted hard drive, the work of these ancient librarians has survived 3,000 years of war, fire, and the relentless grinding of time. They were the original masters of data, serving a king who believed that to own a story was to own the soul of the person who told it. The library of King Ashurbanipal was not a quiet place for reflection. It was the nerve center of an empire that thrived on the absolute control of information. You might think a library is a place of peace. But in the shadows of Nineveh, the library was the most lethal weapon in the Assyrian arsenal. The tablet keepers were not merely clerks or scholars. They were high priests of logic, masters of the complex Cuneiform script, and the only humans allowed to touch the collective wisdom of the gods and the ancestors. They understood a fundamental truth that we have forgotten. Knowledge is not light, it is heavy. It is physical, and it is dangerous. Every day, they walked through halls lined with tens of thousands of clay tablets, each one a record of a ritual, a scientific observation, or a royal decree. But here is the terrifying part. They knew that if a single tablet was misplaced or damaged, the king's divine right to rule would crumble, and the gods would turn their backs on the city. In the archives of Nineveh, an error was not just a typo, it was an act of high treason punishable by a slow and agonizing death. This pressure created a level of precision that modern archivists can only dream of. The tablet keepers worked in the shadows of the North Palace, surrounded by the smell of damp river mud and the intense heat of the kilns. They would take clay from the banks of the Tigris, refining it until it was smooth as silk and free of any imperfections. Then, using a sharpened reed stylus, they would press wedge-shaped marks into the surface with the speed and accuracy of a master pianist. They recorded the movement of the stars, the cries of demons, the omens hidden in the livers of sacrificed sheep, and the medicinal properties of plants that have long since vanished from the earth. But what if the very information they were protecting was never meant for human eyes? Yet, among these thousands of tablets, there was one shelf that no one, not even the king's sons, was allowed to see, the shelf of the forbidden whispers, containing the secret names of entities that existed before time began. The keepers were the guardians of these secrets, bound by oaths of silence that were enforced by the threat of spiritual and physical annihilation. They were the ones who organized the Epic of Gilgamesh, ensuring that the story of man's quest for immortality would outlast the very kings who commissioned it. They developed a system of organization so sophisticated it makes modern databases look like child's play. They used colophons, which were ancient metadata tags inscribed at the end of each tablet, detailing the title, the tablet number in a series, and a warning to any thief who might dare to steal it. Imagine the dedication required to maintain such a system when the Google of 650 BC consisted of 30,000 heavy clay shards that could shatter at the slightest drop. The keepers had to be strong as well as brilliant, moving heavy crates of stone and clay through the labyrinthine corridors of the palace. They were the first to understand that information needs a structure to be useful. They categorized the world into series, like the Enuma, Anu and Lil, a massive collection of celestial omens that allowed the king to predict the future based on the stars. But there was a darker side to their work. They were also the keepers of the king's blacklist, a record of every rebellious thought and every shadow of dissent across the empire. Did you know that the tablet keepers believed the clay itself was alive, a gift from the god Enki, and that every mark made upon it was a permanent scar on the memory of the world? This reverence for the medium is why they were so meticulous. They didn't just write, they sculpted thought. However, the most incredible part of their story isn't how they lived, but how their work was saved by the very thing meant to destroy it. In 612 BC, the combined forces of the Medes and the Babylonians breached the massive walls of Nineveh. They put the city to the sword and set the grand palaces on fire, intending to erase the Assyrian memory from the face of the earth. They thought the fire would turn the library to ash, just as it turned the wooden beams and silk hangings of the palace to smoke. The invaders believed they had won, but the fire did the one thing they never expected: it baked the clay tablets, turning them into stone and preserving them for eternity. The destruction of the city was the salvation of the library. When the walls collapsed, the tablets were buried under layers of brick and ash, sealed away from the elements and the hands of looters. They waited in the dark for over 2,000 years, silent sentinels of a lost age. Yet, there is one specific tablet that even the fire couldn't fully protect. A tablet that is said to contain a prophecy about the end of all human record-keeping. The discovery of the library in the mid-19th century by Austen Henry Layard and Hormuzd Rassam sent shockwaves through the world. Suddenly, we could read the thoughts of men who had been dead for millennia. We found the Babylonian account of the Great Flood, a story that predated the Bible and forced the modern world to rethink everything it knew about history. This was the ultimate legacy of the tablet keepers. They had succeeded in their mission to make the king's memory immortal. But as we translate these tablets, we realize there is a massive, black hole in our current knowledge because of what was not written on clay. The keepers were selective. They only recorded what was deemed worthy of eternity. This reminds us that every archive is a product of choice, and what we choose to remember defines who we are. The tablet keepers were the filters of history, deciding which voices would reach the future and which would be silenced forever. The profession died with the empire, as clay gave way to papyrus and parchment, materials that were easier to carry but far more fragile. The transition to lighter media was the beginning of our current era of digital fragility. We think we are more advanced because we can store library in our pockets. But if the power goes out tomorrow, our entire civilization becomes a blank page. The tablet keepers of Nineveh would look at our flash drives and cloud servers with pity. They knew that for a thought to truly live, it had to have weight, it had to have substance, and it had to be etched into the very bones of the earth. They were the last generation of humans who truly understood the permanence of the written word. When you look at the ruins of the ancient world, you aren't just looking at fallen stones. You're looking at a crashed hard drive that we are only just beginning to reboot. The royal tablet keepers were the first to face the paradox of the information age. The more we know, the more we realize how much we have lost. They spent their lives in the service of a memory that was meant to be eternal. And in a way, they achieved it. Their hands may be dust, but their marks remain, as sharp and clear as the day they were pressed into the wet mud of the Tigris. We are the inheritors of their obsession, living in a world they first organized, yet we lack the discipline they brought to the task. As we move further into an era where information is fleeting and facts are easily deleted, the story of the tablet keepers serves as a haunting reminder of what it takes to actually preserve a culture. It requires more than just technology. It requires a sacred commitment to the truth and a realization that we are merely the temporary stewards of a story that began long before us. Do you think anything we create today, any video, any tweet, or any digital book, will be readable in 3,000 years? Or are we living in the most forgettable and temporary era of human history? The clay of Nineveh is still here. But where will our digital ghosts be when the sun sets on our civilization? We have traded durability for convenience. And in doing so, we may have ensured our own disappearance. The tablet keepers are gone, their rituals forgotten, and their language once a mystery. But their work stands as a challenge to every one of us who hits save today. They prove that true immortality isn't found in the cloud, but in the dirt beneath our feet and the fire that tries to consume us. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe our digital records can truly outlast the clay of the ancients? Or are we destined to be a gap in the fossil record? I want to hear your theories on how we can save our own history from the digital dark ages. If you enjoyed this journey into the lost halls of Nineveh and the mysterious lives of its keepers, make sure to subscribe to Lost Professions for more stories of the jobs that built and broke our world. Every subscription helps us dig deeper into the forgotten corners of human history. Until next time, remember that the most important stories are the ones written in stone.